Hey there, my wedding planning friends, and welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, thanks so much for clicking on my video. I'm Emily Summer. I'm a wedding planner based in Montana, and I make weekly videos on wedding planning tips and advice. So today's video is coming at you from a request, as I've had brides reach out in the past about asking for advice and tips on how to bring in other people to your wedding planning, whether that is because you are overwhelmed and you need the assistance, or you have a lot of people in your life that want to play some type of role in the wedding planning. Whatever the reason is, here are some tips to delegate wedding planning. Before we dive into all the details, I want to preface this by saying the wedding planning process and that journey can be done whatever speaks to you and what works for you guys as a couple. There are no rules as far as who needs to be involved. There's no obligation for you to do all your wedding planning with your mom. Whatever makes sense to you and feels good is the right way that you should attack wedding planning. So that being said, whether you are feeling super overwhelmed and you feel like you need to ask for help, I always say if you are ever at a point of wedding planning where you are super overwhelmed, you feel like there's too much on your plate, you're working a full-time job and you just can't process everything that has to be accomplished with wedding planning and it just feels like too much, always ask for help. There are people in your life that are going to be willing to help for this big event in your life. That being said, don't feel obligated to include people even if they are offering. If they want to be a part of the wedding planning process and you are just somebody that wants to have your hands in pretty much every aspect, you don't really want to give up that control or trust somebody else with this big day in your life, that's okay too. So whatever the reason, here are some tips on the delegation process. So if you are trying to include other people, if you're feeling really overwhelmed and you just want to kind of hand off some items, the number one thing you should do before delegating anything in regards to wedding planning is to sit down and discuss your priorities. So sit down with your partner and come up with probably your top 3 priorities for your wedding day. So is that going to be that you really want to have beautiful flowers? The flowers mean a lot to you. You have a very specific vision for your flowers and your colors of the flowers and how you want them displayed, what you want your centerpieces to look like, what you want your arch florals to look like. That is something that's very important to you. That's going to be a priority. Maybe the catering, maybe the overall food and the menu and the way that it's presented and the way that it's served, that's really important to you, so that's going to be a priority. Or maybe the music and the overall atmosphere and the vibe and the dance floor part of the night is what's really important to you, so that would be your 3rd priority. So sit down and discuss with your partner what are the most important aspects of your wedding day and what's going to make you the happiest when looking back on your wedding day. Once you've come up with your top 3 priorities, these are likely the 3 areas of wedding planning that you guys are going to want to be in control of and handling yourself. Sure, you can get recommendations from other people and maybe some advice or some input, but you are likely going to want to be the ones that have your hands on all the communication with the vendors that are related to these priorities and making sure that you are fully involved in that process. Outside of those priorities, you've got a little bit more wiggle room to ask for help if needed. Now, when it comes to delegating wedding planning, another thing to keep in mind is this is your wedding day. Like, you are probably going to be the only ones that have very strong opinions about certain things in your wedding, or at least an emotional connection to it. You can't expect other people to feel the same way that you do in regards to your wedding plans or different aspects of your wedding. So just keep that in mind if you are wanting to reach out and ask for help or just trying to delegate some of the wedding planning to people that are asking. Additionally, every couple is going to be different as far as the overall involvement that you are going to want in your wedding planning and when it comes to delegating as well. So kind of approach this in whatever way makes the most sense to you, whether that is coming up with a list of items that you need help with and just kind of handing them off to family members. Maybe you're not that closely tied to those items, and whatever the outcome is, you're not that worried about it, or you don't feel the need to be as in control of those items. If that is not you, then you probably don't want to hand off any big items or any big tasks that are going to have a significant outcome on your overall wedding day. Good items to have assistance in is the research and calling part of the wedding planning. So what I mean by this is before you're booking vendors, there's a lot of research that you can do in your area. So researching different types of vendors, for example, your venue if you haven't selected it yet, photographers, florists. There's a lot of research out there and a lot of portfolios to go through and a lot of people to choose from. This is a great place to have help when it comes to looking at what your options are before making any sort of decision. So you could reach out to your maid of honor or some of your girlfriends that are wanting to help and have them help you call and research the vendors in the area for whatever particular aspect of your wedding you're looking for. So looking through portfolios, maybe coming up with like a little spreadsheet or a document that's going to kind of summarize each vendor, so show some of their best work, so that you have a consolidated version of your options that might make things a little bit less overwhelming, a little bit easier for you when it comes to the decision-making process. So this is a great aspect of wedding planning, to have other people help you, is when it comes to calling and researching information. This also goes for bridal attire. This is a great way to include your bridal party, your bridesmaids, your groomsmen, whoever is going to be involved in your wedding, and have them choose their own bridesmaid attire. If this is something that really overwhelms you, you have no strong opinion one way or another, and having to think about what other people are going to be wearing on your wedding day is just an extra task you don't want to deal with, hand it off to your bridal party. This is what they're there for, especially now with a big trend of bridal party and bridesmaid attire specifically being more of a mismatch ensemble, not the exact same dress across. It's a great opportunity to be able to let your gals pick what dress they want, and you can always have them kind of submit their ideas to you so that you can have the final go ahead and make sure that you know exactly what every girl is going to be wearing and that you approve of it, but you're not having to do all of the background work and the research on finding the perfect dresses for all of them. Another area that is great for assistance is your music requests. So this is a great way to include not only people in your life, but also people that you're inviting to your wedding. If you want to have a really fun dance floor and you want to make sure everyone is dancing, a great way to get some music requests is when you are sending out RSVPs, save the dates, and you have a RSVP card, whether that is physical or they're digitally RSVPing online, having an option for them to submit a music request at the same time that they RSVP is a really fun way to not only call a ton of the music that's going to be played at your wedding, but also to ensure that you're going to be having music that is requested by your guests that are actually going to be there. So you know that they're going to get on the dance floor and have a good time to whatever that song is that they requested. Keep in mind that any big decision that has to do with your wedding should be made by you. So if you are asking for help in certain aspects of your wedding, make sure that any decision that is made with vendors, signing of contracts, that you are involved in that. Ideally, your names as a couple should be on every single contract that you sign, regardless of if you do have financial support from other people, whether that is parents or other family members that are footing the bill for a particular vendor. Even if they're paying, you are technically the ones that they are serving, so you want to make sure that your name and you are reading every contract that has to do with your wedding day. Another great arena to have help is anything that has to do with assembly. So a lot of this will likely take place on the day of the wedding or the week of the wedding or right before the wedding. Assembling things like your guest favors, any DIY projects you plan on doing, which anything you are DIYing for your wedding should be done months in advance or as early as you can leading up to your wedding, so that you are not left with a ton of DIY projects the week of your wedding or the day before your wedding and scrambling to get those done. But when it does come to DIY projects, this is also a great way to involve other people in your life and to get some extra pair of hands in there, and your projects are going to go by a lot quicker. Things like folding escort cards and alphabetizing them is something that is a tiny little detail that you don't really anticipate going to take that long or even needing to do, but this is a great way to keep everything organized on the day of, whether you are yourself going to be setting out the escort cards or handing them off to a day of coordinator. Having them alphabetized by their table is going to make everyone's lives easier, and that's something that you can easily have other people help you, as it's just a kind of menial task that doesn't have any sort of emotional attachment connected to it. And then of course the overall table setup and or tear down. If you do plan on just having individuals that are at your wedding, bridal party, parents, family members, whoever, assisting in the overall setup and tear down, I highly recommend having a detailed list of all the items that you are bringing in, any items that are rented, so that you know exactly what is coming from where and where those are going to go. This is going to make things a lot easier for anyone that is going to be assisting you, especially if it's going to be happening the day of the wedding. Things always take longer than you think they're going to be, so if you are having your bridal party help you, you want to make sure that things are going to get set up in enough time that they can still do everything that they need to do for the wedding side of things, to be hair and makeup done for your photos, because they are still having this huge role in your wedding of being with you all day and having to and standing up with you at the altar and having their photo taken and all of that. So you don't want to be stretching them too thin on the day of, so make sure that you have a very organized plan of attack for the setup of your wedding. This also goes for Teardown. Same thing, have your list, have detailed instructions on what is going to go home with you at the end of the night, what needs to be returned to a rental, what stays at the venue, and very detailed instructions on how to clean up, because again, things always take longer than you think they're going to take, and so you want to make sure that you have clear instructions and that you have a very solid plan for not only the table setup but also the teardown as well at the end of the night. The last thing you want to deal with is for the people that are closest to you to be stuck until the wee hours of the morning cleaning up from your wedding day because you didn't have a good plan or know exactly what was going to be required when it comes to cleanup at the end of your wedding night. If you have a wedding planner or a wedding coordinator that's going to assist with this, then you're in a really great position, and that is also a great way to delegate wedding planning, is to just hire a day of coordinator, at least if you don't have it in your budget for a wedding planner. They're going to help take a lot of that load off of you on the actual wedding day and make sure that things are finalized and set up, and then also assist you with a good plan for teardown. Another way to include people on the day if they are looking for a task or need something to do or be in charge of is to be in charge of your cards and gifts at the end of the night, or any personal items. So if you brought in personal mementos from other family members, or if you have printed photos and frames that want to get back that are your own personal possessions that you want to get to a safe place at the end of the night, putting somebody in charge for those items so that you can make sure that those are put somewhere safe, packed away in a vehicle, or put into a hotel room or wherever they need to go so that they have a safe place at the end of the night. There's a lot that goes into wedding planning, and I understand that it can be very overwhelming. So if you are looking for assistance in the wedding planning process and finding ways to delegate different aspects of your wedding planning, hopefully these tips will help you do that. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, please like and subscribe to get weekly videos on wedding planning tips and advice, and we'll see you next week.